Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone. In this lecture, we will discuss about National Building Code 2016, Part 11 and Energy Conservation Building Code. So, this you may be already aware of, National Building Code of India. So, a recent edition was launched by Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS, in 2 volumes in year 2016. So, National Building Code of India, it works as like a resource, reference and specification book of India for engineering, design and construction. It is released by BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards, a national standards body under Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Government of India. This was established by Parliament by an act in 1986. NBC was first published in 1970 by instance of the then Planning Commission of India and was compiled by contributions of over 400 experts. National Building Code of India 2016. Well, in the recent times, there is a huge change in the growth and development, and there is a huge push observed in this sector, and the growth is happening very fast. So how this growth can be maintained at a pace which corresponds to the aspects of sustainability? Well, with that need, actually this new edition was launched with an additional chapter of part of part 11, which talks about approaches to sustainability. So due to huge changes observed in building construction activity, occupancy patterns, lifestyle changes, new material and technology uses, and a greater need in environment protection in the recent decades, there has been a paradigm shift in design and construction. A comprehensive revision of NBC was undertaken by 22 internal expert panels involving around 1,000 experts from across various fields. A revised edition was released in 2016 with inputs from contemporary, international and Indian practices. It comprises of 12 parts with various sections within. So how this NBC works? So there is actually wisdom which is taken from the ancient Indian text, which goes like this. So I'll elaborate over here. Ancient Indian wisdom of architecture to live in the sync with nature. Well, we have been discussing it several times, how the ancient cultures, across the world, they have been surviving for thousands of years without causing damages to the nature and other species, other living beings. The same was actually followed in India also, how our forefathers and ancestors have lived on these lands for a very long time. So is there anything to learn from that? Let's have a look at it. Vedas have elaborated on importance of living with Panchbhutas, that is 5 elements of nature. From very early traits of our civilization, ancestors have shown strong concerns to preserve and sustain the nature and surroundings. There are several instances of weather cycle, rainfall patterns, crop management, and its dependence on weather system, control of insects, ecological balance, and several related topics. So such actually topics are discussed in these ancient scriptures about the annual cycles of climate and weather, how crop cycles are actually arranged accordingly with the cycle of the annual solar system, annual movement of earth around the sun. Even the control of the insects, ecological maintaining the balance, even growing crops which could be healthier for the human body in a specific months, which utilizes actually a paddy is sown in the months of a monsoon, so that it gets ample rainfall and rainwater, as it's the need for the rain, these paddy actually crop is to consume a lot of water, and accordingly we can see such actually cycles are actually designed. Well, historians and travelers from ancient times have recorded the use of local stones in palace making in Mauryan period from 2nd century BC, etc. Mandu has rainwater harvested lakes surrounding the fort. We have seen the pictures of the palaces and forts of Mandu, Okay, one of the amazing actually pieces of like architecture from those times. Stone jalis are famous to house cool air circulation in the narrow lanes from Jaisalmer, with provision of vertical air ducts from lower floors of Havelis. So we have seen these like wind towers where they used to actually take intake of like a outside air, cool it down while passing through that tunnel, and then it emerges within the like internal quarters of the Haveli of those houses, with the touch of those thick walls, and even sometimes like a water bodies, water actually kept flowing inside these actually palaces. Courtyard planning from North India is famous for family houses to accommodate climate and privacy of family. So it shows the attention was paid towards understanding of like natural elements and environments. They tried to align their designs with the nature's way. Well, this is the one actually just in a nutshell. We can say that the ancestors, the forefathers, they have actually tried to align their designs with the nature's way. Okay, the various geographical regions of our country have developed their own locally evolved vernacular climate responsive architectural mechanisms to source and build. These buildings have proved to be efficient and comfortable to the occupants for over like several centuries. The earlier buildings have used passive energy efficiency techniques with no external intervention whatsoever. They stood individually supported by surroundings only. We see like a heavily industrialized and externally dependent buildings in the recent times. Like the buildings which are being erected these days. Like we have been like reiterating it like several times in our previous lectures. We are sourcing materials from across the country, in some cases from like different parts of the world also. Well, there are several repercussions of it, like in the form of like indirect emissions, indirect like energy consumption, and several other like ways. But in the ancient times, the buildings were completely based on the local resources and local like energy and local like manpower. So they were not dependent. These buildings used to stand like truly alone, with the help of the surrounding, with the help of the climate. They used to actually function very efficiently, providing like a comfortable quarters inside them. Modern buildings cannot function at all without external intervention and support of various types. The moment we like stop the supply of electricity, our buildings are completely going to fail to function. Isn't it the scenario? Well, why to make such buildings which are completely or like entirely dependent on like external like services and the like inputs? So this is the actually motto over here to discuss. Why to have like such buildings which are externally dependent? Why not to make them sustainable, make them stand alone on their own? If they need like a power, why can't they generate power on their own? If they need like other resources, why can't they use the resources from the like a vicinity only? So that is the actually concept. Today's India is again moving very fast towards creating like a bigger than ever infrastructure and urbanization. Well, we are seeing and we are witnessing there are several actually schemes under like a implementation. They are at like a various stages of their implementation, and they are promoting a fast actually growth and development as far as like a infrastructure and this design and construction sector is concerned. It appears that soon India will no longer be a country of rural landscape, which was agrarian, but it's fast turning into an industrialized economy and society. Various researchers have shown that by year 2050, the built-up area of India would be 4 times of the current status of like a year 2016, which is a severe challenge to cope with the sustainable development. Whether India is going to behave responsibly in like this fast actually paced development. So let's see what is the light ahead, like how India has been doing like traditionally, from the ancient times. So we can see like the Indian like ancient Indian wisdom gives us like a 3 important attributes. If we see it here, the first one is aparigraha, the second one is sanrakshana, the third one punarchakran. So the first one aparigraha means minimum possession. That means like a minimum consumerism, a minimum actually resource utilization, minimum actually resource taking resources from the like a surrounding or from anywhere. So minimizing the need, This is what we have been discussing in like our previous lecture for as a like a strategy how to minimize the waste. So the waste is actually generated by the mindless actually consumption of products and artifacts, and even utilizing like lots of services which are not that critical for to meet our needs. So we have actually entered into an experiential economy, where we have kind of fulfilled our basic needs and we are going beyond that. Well, that approach is generating a lot of waste. That approach is actually forcing our economy, our industries to produce a lot of stuff, which is turning into landfills, and the whole place is actually getting polluted. So this actually concept, this actually wisdom is already given in our Indian text of aparigraha, that means like a minimum possession. Second, sanrakshan, that is conservation, like a minimum consumption. So like a consuming actually things in like a very little quantity, as much as we need. Okay, so preserving the rest. So that means like a minimizing the consumption. First of all, minimizing the possession, then minimizing the consumption. Okay, so if we need like something, we take only that much, whatever is like a really needed. We should discard the we should not actually take at all the resource which is not actually needed by us. The third one is punarchakran, that is recycling. So that means like generating very minimal waste, which seems more relevant than like ever. Well, traditionally, I believe our forefathers, they have done a wonderful, actually they have lived like a wonderfully, but in the recent times we see like how much of like impact like we as a like a community have made on our surroundings. So these actually three concepts, these three wisdoms, from the ancient texts are more relevant than ever of going for like a minimum possession, minimum consumption, and minimal waste. With these three attributes and rich heritage and sustainability in living styles, India can make substantial contribution in planning and design for sustainability. Well, this is the concept of sustainability. It seems it is not new for us. It is not something like a new science we are talking about here. We are just trying to actually, if we are able to even revive our ancient wisdoms, that will be good enough. I think that is more than enough for what we are actually looking for these through these studies. Buildings in harmony of regional common knowledge resources which are part of every cultural societies. Well, this is also very important. We have been emphasizing on the need of vernacular techniques and designs. Like how vernacular is very important for the region, because vernacular actually is a concept which evolves from the place, which is rooted at that particular place, rooted with the culture, rooted with the climate, geography, topography, demography. So that actually has a solution for any kind of requirements which may actually come up for the community which is living at any given place. Further, we see, so what are the new additions based on actually these philosophies which were actually carried out, as a new part in the NBC 2016. So we have seen the kind of challenges we are facing and the kind of strategies which are required to deal with them. Okay, so drawing from our contemporary case examples and studies, in sustainability sciences, and drawing from our ancient wisdom, we have this the team has actually come up with some solutions, some recommendations, for creating a new actually part in itself, which is devoted to approaches to sustainability. So we will discuss about the new additions which have happened in the NBC. A whole new part, approach to sustainability, is included in NBC 2016. If we compare the two consecutive editions, it itself is sufficient to emphasize on the importance of sustainability in design and construction sector. Well, there is a whole actually thought process which has gone for deciding to introduce this particular part in this NBC as a resource document. So this document, this book works as a reference and resource book for the practitioners, educators, students, manufacturers, the builders, every stakeholder who is anyhow related with this design and construction sector actually must refers this actually book, because this book is constitutionally also in nature and is binding Okay, and one must actually follow the recommendation and the guidelines given in this book for any like a building services, for like any like a human comfort designing, etc. So NBC in general mainly contains like administrative regulations, material specifications, safety instructions, and service planning, etc. So as you can see, like it is very evident that it advises, it actually gives like it lays down a roadmap, it lays down a layout like how to go for like a following like regulations of the like a given places, as far as like architectural or ergonomics or like a human like a anthropometric actually data is considered. If it is like related with the like a climate, then how to deal with that. So, and if it is related with the like a local administrative rules and regulations and bylaws, then how to go about it. So it lays down such actually regulations. On the material specification part, like how to use like a certain materials for like a certain like a requirements, in what quantities, what proportions, so that is also given in this book for reference. And the safety instructions, while taking precaution while the design and construction actually stage is very important. Taking safety precautions of the like workers who are employed on the site is very important. So those guidelines are also mentioned in this book. And of course the finally the service planning, etc. So about the new edition of like a NBC, Part 11 talks about performance and incorporating localized features based on a geography, environment, priorities, and agenda. It is not specific to any other rating system and doesn't intend to set a single metric indication to measure and rate building performance. The provisions herein are kept flexible for a practitioner to use this code objectively as and where required. Finally, NBC fairly gives the opportunity to pick up its individual codes and provisions and apply them as per underlying principles of sustainable development, functionality, comfort, safety, and other considerations for the project. So as you can see, this NBC as overall a document, it is a huge compilation of the considerations which could be necessary in any given situation on the a construction site. So this provides an extensive and an exhaustive actually set of considerations and guidelines and regulations which may be required anywhere in any given a situation. So a project, depending upon its nature and application, can choose a number of points which are relevant and necessary for it to follow. So it's a resource book, depending upon need, and the provisions which are laid down here can be utilized. NBC is not actually a rating tool also, so that is why actually it doesn't actually evaluates a building on a certain parameters. Well, that job is left for the a rating tools. For example, we have a Griha, lead, etc. So those are actually specific tools for evaluation, but that is why actually NBC is different than any of those tools. Those tools actually evaluate a building on a one given parameter or two given parameters, but NBC provides an extensive actually considerations which could be actually touching a building at any point of time while designing construction, operation, and maintenance and even disposal. So that is how this NBC differs with any a rating tool. So for the content of part 11, you can see over here it's a diagram which shows the kind of attention, the kind of the criteria points given in under these actually actually considerations for their evaluation. So approach to sustainability has around 13 points, and you can see on the building service optimization it has around 16 points. So this is just a diagram to show how much of criteria points are distributed in each of these sections. So Griha version 2015 came before NBC 2016, hence there is a lot of scope to be included in Griha from part 11 of NBC. Well, we know Griha as a rating tool utilizes NBC, it utilizes a ECBC for actually drawing considerations and evaluation actually parameters. So since this NBC has come up in year 2016, so they have actually released a new version of Griha in 2019 which utilizes actually this document. As per Griha mandate, NBC was taken as a resource book by Griha research team. NBC doesn't recognize itself as a geographical distinction but in an overall sense. The research intends to find out missing points in SA method and look for those in the NBC to plug. So from here we can actually find out which are those relevant points, which are those relevant actually criteria which are needed for inclusion for actually fulfilling any like a certain like a objective. So for example, if you are framing like a sustainability assessment method such as like a Griha, lead, etc., then we can draw from this latest edition of NBC for like appropriate criteria points. So distribution wise, you can see like how much of weightage is given in each of these sections. Further, I would like to explain about the contents of NBC 2016. So it has like two volumes. In each volume there are a certain number of parts, and within those parts there are like sections and subsections depending upon the strength, and depending upon the focus and the weight is needed in those parts. So the part 0 talks about integrated approach, a prerequisite for applying the provisions of the code. Then part 1 starts from here with the definitions. Then part 2 talks about like administration. Part 3 talks about development controls, rules and general building requirements. Part 4 talks about fire and life safety. Then part 5 talks about building materials. Part 6 talks about structural design. And under that like a part, there are some sections and subsections. Section 1 talks about loads, forces and effects, soils, foundation, timber and bamboo. Then it has like a masonry, concrete, then plain and reinforced concrete, pre-stressed concrete, steel, prefabrication and system building, and mixed composite construction. Prefabricated concrete, it has system building and mixed composite construction. It has glass and glazing details also. Okay, so that much was covered in the volume 1. Volume 2 has construction management practices and safety, building services, lighting and natural ventilation, electrical and allied installations. Then it has like air conditioning, heating and mechanical ventilation, acoustics, sound insulation and noise control, installation of lifts and escalators and moving walks, lifts, escalators and moving walks. Then it has like a information and communication enabled installation, plumbing services including like a solid waste management, water supply, drainage and sanitation, solid waste management, gas supply. It has landscape development, signs and outdoor display structures. Further inside that, in the sections, it has like landscape planning, design and development, sign and outdoor display structures. Finally, the part 11 comes, which is approach to sustainability, and the part 12 about asset and facility management. So these are the actually contents of NBC, where it has actually laid down elaborate actually descriptions and recommendations under these heads and subheads. So now we will discuss about Energy Conservation Building Code 2016. So if you see, what is the purpose of this ECBC, like Energy Conservation Building Codes? The purpose of the Energy Conservation Building Codes is to provide minimum requirements for the energy efficient design and construction of buildings. The code also provides two additional sets of incremental requirements for buildings to achieve enhanced levels of energy efficiency that go beyond the minimum requirements. So we can see like this gives us a minimum actually criteria, like how much of energy efficiency should be achieved in any like a given building. So it talks about the guidelines, it talks about the recommendation, it talks about the other like evaluations parameters, so that this purpose can be achieved. And what is ECBC? The Energy Conservation Building Code was launched in May 2007 by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, BEE, Ministry of Power. Its main objective is to establish minimum requirements for energy efficient design and construction of buildings, recognizing the energy and cost savings of efficient buildings and to help address growing energy needs. The states are in the process to notify ECBC code also. So as you can see, like a Ministry of Power is the main actually a source for this ECBC codes, and in order to go for like energy efficiency in buildings and like several other appliances, this BEE, Bureau of Energy and Energy Efficiency was actually established, which recommends, which prepares actually these guidelines, and it implements in the like a field. You may have noticed some like a home appliances, also electrical and electronic appliances also, they are like a star rated actually for their energy efficiency. So that is also one of the ways to bring in the products who comply on the energy efficiency parameters. Well, what are the contents of ECBC? We have this slide over here, which talks about the contents of ECBC 2017. So, starting from the like a purpose to the scope, it goes for like energy efficiency performance levels. It talks about building systems, precedence, reference standards, building classification. And in compliance and approach, it talks about energy performance index. Determining EPI ratio. Compliance approaches, mandatory requirements, prescriptive methods, whole building performance method. The other there are several actually documents and recommendations. You can see the list is given over here, which talks about like how to design actually a particular component. For example, if you see here in the building envelope chapter, there are like a mandatory requirements for like a fenestrations, opaque constructions, daylighting, building envelope ceiling. Prescriptive requirements, for example, in the places of like a roofing, opaque external walls, vertical fenestrations, skylights, building envelope trade-off methods, standard building EPF calculations. For the like a comfort systems and controls, it is given for like some mandatory requirements for like a ventilation, minimum space conditioning equipment efficiencies, controls, additional controls for ECBC plus and super ECBC buildings, additional controls for super ECBC buildings, piping and ductwork, system balancing, condensers, and service water heating. For the prescriptive requirements, it speaks about like a pumps, cooling towers, economizers, variable flow hydraulics, hydronic systems, boilers, energy recovery, tool system efficiency, alternate compliance approach, and low energy comfort system, etc. It talks about the lighting and control also, for lighting controls for like exit signs, some prescriptive requirements it has given for like interior lighting power, building area method, space function method, installed interior lighting power, exterior lighting power, etc. And then in the for like electrical and renewable energy system, it talks about like transformers, energy efficient motors, diesel generator sets, check metering and monitoring, power factor correction, power distribution systems, uninterruptible power supply UPS, which we know of, renewable energy system, and yeah, so on. So these are actually various actually recommendations which ECBC gives for, so that the energy efficiency can be actually achieved in each and every like a component of the like a buildings which are related with the energy efficiency, energy requirements. Well, why is it important? India has 2/3 of the total building stock that will exist in 2030 are yet to be built. That means a huge construction is coming on our way. New buildings possess a great challenge to meeting its increasing energy demand, and we know like buildings are the largest consumer of power across the world. Almost like a 40% of the total energy produced across the world is taken up by the buildings only, which is the highest among all sectors, even leaving the industry sector behind. So ECBC sets a minimum energy efficiency levels for like a commercial buildings, locking in energy saving for years to come, retaining occupant comfort while combating climate change. So this is why actually important. Is it applicable to all the buildings? Well, ECBC is applicable to almost all buildings or building complexes that have a connected load of like 100 kilowatt or greater, or a contract demand of like a 120 kVA or greater, and used for like a commercial purposes. So this is where actually ECBC becomes mandatory. It is applicable for both government and private buildings. The code is not applicable to equipment and portions of building systems that use energy primarily for manufacturing processes. The different types of building classified under like ECBC, you can see there are 6 major: hospitality, assembly, healthcare, business, education, and shopping facility. Inside that, it deals with the star hotels, non-star hotels, resorts, theaters, transport service facilities, multiplexes, hospitals, OPDs. It deals with like a small offices, medium, large offices, schools, colleges, universities, institutions, etc. Shopping malls, standalone retails, open gallery malls, supermarkets, etc. So these are all we can see are the bigger establishments whose like a private power requirements are like a heavy. So these ECBC norms are actually mandatory for like such facilities. Well, what are the different compliance approaches to meet ECBC compliance? Well, there are three actually compliance approaches to meet ECBC compliance: prescriptive, building trade-off, and a whole building performance approach. So we'll see one by one. In the prescriptive approach, it has like a flexibility, keeping it low, expert knowledge, keeping it low. and requires like a little energy expertise, provides minimum performance requirement, no flexibility. So this is actually the simplest one over here. And the second one, if you see, like the flexibility kept is like at the medium level, expert knowledge at the medium level. It allows some flexibility through the balance of some high efficiency components with other lower efficiency component. Finally, the third one, whole building performance approach. The flexibility level here is very high, and expert knowledge high, allows flexibility in meeting or exceeding energy efficiency requirements as compared to a baseline building. Well, what are the mandatory code requirements? Irrespective of whether one opts for a whole building performance method or prescriptive method, the code compliances require the building to fulfill a set of mandatory provisions. The mandatory requirements are described in EGE-CBC under sections 3 to 1, 4.2, 5.2, 6.2 and 7.2 of CGE-CBC code. Well, what is the EPI of a building? This is one of the important actually things I wanted to elaborate over here. The EPI of a building stands for Energy Performance Index, which can be like a given as under, like a EPI is equal to like a annual energy consumption in like a kilowatt hour kWh divided by total built up area excluding the unconditioned basement. So unconditioned spaces like a basement, etc. So this is where the performance index of like a building is evaluated on the like a energy parameter. So that is known as like a EPI. So how much of the area it is consuming, divided by the total built up area, like whatever is the like a built up area of that building. So per like a square meter, for example, like how much of energy is being consumed on like an annual basis. So that actually a number is known as like a EPI. Why this is important? Because there are certain actually slabs given for like a optimal actually uses of optimal actually consumption of like a power in the buildings. In like a it is divided based on the different like the types of the building, also whether it is a retail, hospitality, educational, etc. So a building actually must come closer to that actually to attain the efficiency on energy consumption part. Well, what is the, let's see, there is another actually this actually combination actually coming up. So it talks so this is like a EPI ratio. So what is EPI ratio? For that understanding that we must actually understand how to derive this. So let's see this slide. What is the difference between a standard building and a proposed building? A proposed building is the like a consistent with the actual design of the building and complies with all mandatory requirements of ECBC. And what is like a standard building? So standard building is a standardized building that has the same building floor area, a gross wall area and gross roof area as the proposed building, complies with the mandatory requirements section 4.2, 5.2, 6.2 and 7.2, and minimally complies with prescriptive requirements of section 4.3, 5.3 and 6.3 for ECBC buildings. So based on this, if you see what is the EPI ratio. So the EPI ratio is the ratio of the EPI of the proposed building to the EPI of the standard building, simply. Okay, so EPI ratio is the like a EPI of proposed building divided by EPI of standard building. So standard building is the like a standard, you can say, as a like a base case. So how well is the performance of your like a proposed building? So that is checked with this actually base case, and you get the EPI ratio. So this is like a EPI. So this will actually define like how much deviation the proposed building, the design building has compared to the base actually base case, the standard building. So this is where actually if the ratio is like a 1, or if it is closer to 1, it is the like a it will taken as like an optimum actually case. Well, important thing over here, what is U value? Let me bring U value is a measure of like a heat loss. It is expressed in watt actually per meter square Kelvin, and shows the amount of heat loss in watts per square meter of material. For example, wall, roof, floor, etc. When the temperature K outside is at least like 1 degree lower, the lower the U value, the better the insulation provided by the material. So actually U value is the kind of a it provides the actually thermal actually abilities. So the how efficient the material is to reduce or minimize the actually heat loss. So we actually use this U value to calculate the property of like such materials, so that efficient material can be utilized for like for example, where there is like a air conditioning, or there is a huge actually temperature gap between inside to outside, so an efficient actually U value will give us like a it will protect us actually from the heat loss, from the energy loss. Where can I find construction material properties? Well, for your calculations purpose, this is advised like you can find actually construction material properties from the suppliers first of all, or the test certificates. So most of the actually companies, they have been asked and recommended to provide actually specification data regarding their like a product. So they actually usually provide a manual or a booklet, or maybe a one-page document where they talk about the specifications of their product, for example like a U value, etc., so that the information is handy while you are undertaking the design process. Secondly, if they are not available with the manufacturer, vendor, or supplier, you can refer the appendix of like a ECBC for the default values of like a certain like a standard materials which are commonly used in the market. So from here you can collect the data, you can get the data, and you can conduct your calculations in your project. Well, the software is important for like a WBP, like a whole building like a performance calculations and simulations, etc. So these are actually some open source or freely available softwares, listed by ECBC, which you can take note of, or take a screenshot of this actually slide, and you can look for these softwares while if you are looking for like a creating like a simulations, if you are looking for actually calculating the value, or WPP of your like a designs. So these are like a eQuest, Open Studio Design Builder, IESVE, Symergy, Energy Plus, eQuest, and Energy Plus. So these are the actually some softwares, some like open source and free softwares which you can use for your calculation purposes. Well, what about the weather data and all? So this is also one of the important actually data sets which are needed for like undertaking like a such a analysis and studies. So Indian Society of like a Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning engineers, like ISHRE, provides weather data for like Indian locations for simulations. Weather files can be downloaded from Energy Plus website for Indian cities, given on the link below. So this is the link below. You can go to this link, and you can gather like a weather related information of like a the Indian like a given cities, from wherever like you are located, or your project is actually located. You can download this data, you can feed into the like a software, and the software will generate a simulated environment where that actually places. So by placing your building and design in that actually simulated like atmosphere, you can calculate actually the further calculations. So this will be helpful for the your like a project for calculating like the EPI or EPI ratio of the your projects. Okay, so this is how you can make use of this ECBC recommended actually materials, ECBC recommended actually provisions, and NBC provisions also. So it is very important for you as an like architect, designer, or engineer to practice in India. So you must actually consider NBC and ECBC norms and recommendations for your designs. Thank you very much.